Everybody turn to Sasha. There's a rumor that you've been studying oil and gas.
That rumor is true. I can verify that. Yeah.
Sometimes rumors are exactly right.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I mean, in Hawaii, is there anybody else who studies oil and gas? Are you the only one?
No, I'm sure there's some others, but this is our core business that we've been looking at for about 30 years, and probably 99% of our clients are not in Hawaii. Actually, not even really in the United States.
Why are you here then?
Because we love Hawaii. Why are you here? You know, this is home. This is where we grew up. This is where the company was founded as a side consulting gig by my dad.
East West Center. And all
Yeah,
that?
my dad was the energy director at East West Center and was doing some consulting on the side, and the side thing became the big thing. So
Interesting the way that works.
Yeah.
And you were there watching him work.
I was there watching him work.
Rubbed off on you.
Yep, and then did my MBA at UH that I was mentioning to you earlier this afternoon, and the 9/11 hit and I needed a job, and Dad, can I come and work for you for a little while? And 13 years later, here I am, you know?
So what is the trick?
What's the trick?
Yeah.
To what?
Studying oil and gas.
I
mean, just in case somebody out there
if you want to know how to
compete.
predict oil prices, the best way is to get maybe 3 glasses of wine, and then just pick a number. So, because it's very, very challenging. We know it's such a cyclical business. I mean, the ups and downs of volatility, and that's what we can talk about a bit, because I think we're in for a period of volatility in the next 5 years. Just looking at the fundamentals as far as supply and demand, we're going to be pinging like this.
Would you rather have volatility than a steady increase up?
No, because I can plan without the volatility if it's a steady. I mean, if I know it's going to be slow and steady and I have an idea of the range, I can plan accordingly. But when prices drop 50%, as we've seen in 6 months, that can throw off your economics really, really quickly, as we've seen.
So when you study it, you're going to look at two sides of the equation. I'm guessing on this, but two sides, and you can disagree the way Ray always disagrees. You look at the side of the equation where you find out what exactly is happening. Okay, whatever it is, make those charts and graphs. It's happening. It's up. It's down. And all. And the second part, I think you do this too, is you figure out how this affects other things. So it's not happening in a vacuum. It's not just a chart and a graph showing price. It's this is going to affect this. This is going to affect that, because it's all. I mean, in the global world, it's all connected anyway. So it's much more than just finding the price. Am I right?
Yeah, and what separates our analysis, we believe, is the insights we can offer, because we have really good relationships with a lot of our subscribers. We actually go and visit. We have 270 clients. We go and visit every single one of them in their office at least once a year and give them a presentation.
Here in Hawaii.
All around the world. So we have 3 in Hawaii, DBED, HECO, and Hawaii Gas. But we have, 267 around the world. So we actually go to their offices, and some guy in New York can run the numbers, but until you're in front of these guys' faces and having a discussion with them and being able to read their body language, you kind of develop these deep insights to really make get some good views on what the heck is going on.
Like that? Isn't that
you get on the plane
expensive?
a lot. Yeah.
So, okay, here I'm one of these 270 guys, and you come and see me, and I say, "Hi, Sasha. What's the conversation?"
Well, I'm going to give you our view on exactly, let's say they're a gas retainer client, on where the natural gas market is going and what our view is as far as prices and supply and demand over the next 10 or 15 years. And then talk about what's going on in China, India, in some cases Hawaii, because a lot of people are interested in what's going on here. And then basically have a conversation with them about their particular areas. So we're able to take little pieces from everyone we visit and kind of put it all together and paint this picture and share that picture with all of our clients.
So it's input-output.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go to tell them, you're going to tell them things, but you're going to also ask them things.
Yeah, and actually we often learn more from them than they do from us.
Do they charge you for that?
No, that's why it's a
That's the good
part. Pretty sweet gig.
What do you guys want to ask a question about that?
So when you say demand and supply, is that the only 2 variables that impact the prices? Because it seems that there are foreign countries and what's happening in Iran, or Iraq, and Saudi Arabia have impacts, and how do they control that?
I mean, we're very fundamentals based, so that is kind of the core thing we look at. But of course, you have to look at regulations, environmental regulations, because that will constrain certain burning of certain fuels, as you know. You have to look at geopolitical issues as well. But trying to forecast geopolitics even harder than forecasting the oil price. So you know, we were expecting an oil price decrease for the last year, but because of situations in Libya and Syria, geopolitical tension was propping it up, and these kinds of things are difficult to forecast. But once that began to ease up, when you looked at the fundamentals, it was clear to us a year ago that we were in for a drop.
What made it clear?
And a
Just
big
looking-
drop like that?
Yeah, a big drop. We actually, believe it or not, I can show you an old report we wrote about a year ago that said we're going to be at $50 in 2015, $50 to $60. And just looking at the fundamentals, there's simply too much supply versus demand. So globally, incremental demand growth was 800,000 barrels a day. So the world grew by 800,000 barrels a day, so from, like, say, 95 million to 95.8 million barrels a day. Supply grew just in the US by 1.2, 50% more than the demand. So, you know, basic economics say more supply than demand, it's going to put pressure on the prices. And a lot of what's driving that is what's going on in the US. We've heard about the shale gas revolution from fracking and horizontal drilling. Well, that's now all moved into the oil patch. So now you're accessing this tight, deep oil that we always knew was there, but we can never extract economically. And now through advances in particularly horizontal drilling and fracking as well, so you're drilling sideways like this instead of vertical, so you're getting more exposure to the pay zone, and you're able to kind of break up that rock via fracking so the oil seeps out easier. We've been able to extract a heck of a lot more of these resources than we could have 5 years ago. And I guess the main story here, for some people like it, some people don't, but really the reality is that the era of hydrocarbons is not over anytime soon because of these technological innovations.
Because it makes it cheaper.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, doesn't this trouble you? I mean, as a supply-demand person, you know, we have a certain, I mean, I always see it this way, we have a certain amount of oil left for the human race. And
Eventually it's
even
gonna-
the best technology in the world isn't going to take it too much beyond that. Although I do want to talk about the Israeli car, the water car, and I'll tell you why I feel that's relevant. You know about this. The water
I've
car.
heard about it.
We'll get to this. Anyway, so, you know, isn't it troubling that there's nobody out there that says, wait a minute, boys, you don't need that much. Don't drill in everything. Don't frack in everything. Slow down. Why don't you just take out what we need?
Look, I don't disagree. I think we need to move to a post-hydrocarbon world because, as you said, it's a finite resource. Even though we're getting more and more of it than we thought that was possible, it'll eventually run out, right? So I have no doubt in my mind that within the next 50 to 100 years, we won't be using barely any hydrocarbons, if any. But I have no doubt in my mind that for the next 50 years, we certainly will be.
Yeah, and it's big bucks.
It's big bucks, but also the transport sector is still a challenge, and then we can talk about your car in a bit. But also, you know, jet fuel. There's no alternative really for that. They messed around with biofuels for jets, but that's the net energy loss. When
Algae
you do
hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah. So I mean, look, we will get there. It's just a matter of time. But
But your company still has a few years on it. So.
at least for my lifetime, right?
So I want to talk about the water car.
What is
Now,
that?
this is a true story. It sounds like fiction, but it is true.
Allegedly true.
Okay. Well, you see, just test on it, you know. I got emails just in the last week from two people in two distant places giving me two distant YouTube movies of this thing. And this company, it's called, I forget. It's a funny name about energy. Phinergy, Phinergy, P-H-I-N-E-R-G-Y, Phinergy. It's an Israeli company, a bunch of guys at a university in Israel working on this for something like 6 or 7 years. Very creative guys. And they find that chemically embedded in metals such as aluminum, there is energy. I guess it takes a lot of energy to make aluminum, but you can also get it out of aluminum, okay? And you do this with some kind of reaction, which involves 3 elements: the aluminum, water, like you could drink kind of water, any water, okay, and air, any air, ambient air, okay? And with this gizmo that they have made, those 3 interact, and I guess it creates heat, and the heat creates electricity, or maybe it goes directly to electricity, and it drives this car, a little wee car with, you know, what do you call those little cars the Geo-type cars, right? And they put this on the road, everybody to see, everybody to watch, and they drove 300 kilometers, and it worked fine, it worked dandy, and it drove all day at 300 kilometers without any gas. And you know what they had to put in? Water. They would stop at gas stations and put water in. And each time the guys running the car would take a sip of this stuff, just to show you that it was really
That
water.
was really water. Yeah, that's funny. That's cool.
Now, if that's true,
I am gonna have to check that out.
please check it out. Everybody check it out, okay? Phinergy, Phinergy, and see what you think. You can see the movies. You know, it's right there. If that's true, if it's true, if it works, first of all, those guys are going to be very wealthy. Second of all, it could turn transportation upside down. Because once you have the thing in place, aside from questions of maintenance, it's like perpetual, you know,
Yeah.
almost, using elements that are available to you. I suppose you run out of the, you know, the embedded energy in the aluminum after a while, theoretically, but
I mean,
we'll discuss this at another time.
we have some hydrogen cars on island, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah,
do.
so-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I
We
mean,
do.
I mean,
We're
that is,
testing those.
once we can get that from water, I mean, the cheapest way to, unfortunately, right now, my understanding to get hydrogen is from natural gas, but once we can just extract it from water in an economical way, then that is very, very,
You know, but the reality, and I'm sure you deal with the reality, is that we have an economic infrastructure, physical
Yeah.
infrastructure all over this world,
chicken and egg thing. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you can't just say stop with fossil fuel because it has momentum to it.
Yeah.
The world is dependent on it. I mean, I always tell the story of my wife. She's going to get a new car. I said, "Why don't you get an electric car like Sharon Moriwaki?" You know? She said, "Are you
Henry.
kidding me? I want to get a regular car like everybody else."
Well, if you have PV in Hawaii, then you're doing good with an electric car, but if you're pulling off the grid, you're still pulling 75% off oil, so that's why
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need to change
Oh, I see.
that part of the equation.
Remember the dream of Better Place? Better Place was going to pull it off the grid, and it was going to be all PV or whatever. It was going to be all green energy, and you still couldn't get that even now. So. Okay, so that's the first part of our show, and let's decide now. We're going to talk about the second part of our show. Any thoughts? I'll tell you what I think. I would like to know the effect of all this on the world economy. It's both chicken and egg, you know. It's how the world economy affects the oil prices, but also how the oil prices affect the economy.
Also, we haven't talked about LNG, because
We have to
LNG
go to
puts a
LNG,
different mix
part of the
to
same
that
thing.
whole big
Especially when
picture.
you're talking about Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get into that right after a very short break, which I feel it coming on. I feel
I feel it.
it's going to happen just about now.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out.
Hey, we're back. We're live with Sasha Fesharaki of FGE, that's Facts Global Energy. And we're here on Hawaiian State of Clean Energy with Sharon Moriwaki and Ray Starling. And I guess we're still calling it Oil and Gas Outlook for Hawaii, but we might think of another name as we go forward. So let's talk about you know, the process. I mean, I asked you the other day. Sasha was one of the star speakers in the energy briefing at the Capitol on Friday, and talking about the same subject, oil and gas, and how that affects things around clean energy in Hawaii. And I asked, you know, the big question for me is why, and you know, how do you measure conspiracy in little pieces or big pieces? Is this a big global conspiracy? That must be very interesting for you to study that. Do we have somebody here who's trying to control the price?
It makes for nice newspaper headlines, but the reality is no. It's a sound economic decision by the Saudis, actually.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, they are the ones who are able to move the market because they have all this excess production capacity. So whenever the market is oversupplied, they're willing to take the cut and bring global supply down, thereby bringing prices up. Or if there's not enough supply, they'll pump more. In this case, they have been sick of essentially ceding market share to independent producers, say, for example, in the US, or other high-cost producers. So they've been bearing the brunt, and they've been having to cut back from their production. So say from like 9 million barrels a day to 7 million barrels a day, taking supply out of the market. And they just decided that we're no longer going to do this. So we're going to keep producing at 9, and we're going to bring the price down to a level that makes these other guys, basically the ones that are efficient as far as their costs, then they can play the game if they're producing at these levels, and the ones that are inefficient will go out of the market.
And that helps them.
That helps them in the
It's
long
like
run.
a price war.
It's a price war. Yeah, it helps them in the long run. So in the short run, they lose a bit, but in the long run, it'll help them. So,
Would you call this a free market?
no, no. I would call the U.S. natural gas market a free market, and that's why we have so much difficulty trying to predict it, because, I mean, if it's truly free, it's really,
Anybody
really
can
hard.
get in, even a little guy.
Yeah, and you have hundreds, if not thousands, of small, independent, aggressive, nimble companies, drilling on, your or my property, basically.
This is like that old program, Dallas.
Yeah.
Dallas, man.
Dallas, yeah. The oil market, though, has a big boss, which is the Saudis.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty heavy stick,
Yeah.
and they can move things, so it's not really a free
So
market.
let me ask you this. If you were king, if I made you king of the world,
Oh, I like this. I like where this is going.
you like where this is going. And I give you the right to sort of make edicts, about how we do things best, based on your expertise in the area. Would you let it go forward this way, or would you impose some kind of regulation on it, some kind of mechanical paradigm that controlled it, an algorithm that controlled the price of oil? A, could you do that? And B, would you do that? Would you put some sort of structure on top of it?
I don't think you could, and I personally wouldn't, because I'm a big free market person. I mean, I just like to let the market
I'm sorry
decide.
for you.
Yeah, I am too. But, I believe in the market and letting itself work out, so no, I wouldn't do that.
So let me add a fact, though. I mean, this could, it's really a question, this could have a bad effect one day. If this totally free market, or market manipulated by the Saudis, whatever it is, could be somebody else later, who knows, who may not be as benign as the Saudis,
Yeah.
to the extent they are. We could have a bad time if all of a sudden the price of oil went way down low, or way up high, or something. Then everybody in the world is affected, because we're all linked, and we'll all suffer. And can't we prevent that?
I don't think we can in Hawaii, but I think the Saudis also, it's important to know that they don't want the price to go too high, because if it's too high, then everything as far as alternatives begin to work. So there's kind of a sweet spot that they aim for, that they believe will enable oil demand to grow, albeit slowly, but still shut out alternative energies in our view, in our discussions with them. So that's maybe around $60 to $80 a barrel. And that being said, as new technologies come through in solar and other parts of alternative energy, the cost curve comes down for these alternatives, and then eventually that game can no longer be played. Yeah, exactly. But sorry, the bottom line that I want to say is the low oil prices make it difficult in Hawaii for LNG, for a lot of other alternatives as well.
Because the
solar,
clean energy
whatever it
guys
may
are
be.
getting shaken out also.
Yeah.
Everyone
is.
getting shaken out.
Everyone is. And oil is returning to its role as, at least in the near term.
Predominant.
Yeah. And that, look, even though I work in the business, I think that's fundamentally unfortunate, because I believe we need to diversify our fuel mix, and it's a finite resource.
I heard a piece the other day on the very question of how you change that. And one of the ways you could change it is by putting a new and dramatically higher tax on gas, on gas at the pump.
Yeah.
And they were saying, why don't we do that? We haven't actually increased the amount of
Political
tax.
suicide in the United States. But yeah, we've been saying this for a long time, actually, when the prices were high, that in order to curb demand, basically, let's just do what the Europeans do. And it costs $8 a gallon, essentially. So, and when the prices go up, they're not really seeing that, because it's already, big taxes already involved.
Well,
So.
and this would be a good time, if you're gonna raise the taxes,
Exactly.
now's
When
the
it's low.
time,
Yeah.
because people are saying, wow, I'm spending $70 less a
That's
week.
right.
Yep, no, you're absolutely
in
right.
filling up my car, so let's take
So-
10 of that, and
Don't bring
make
down
it a
the
tax.
price, just keep
Yeah,
the price
yeah.
at where it was.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
no, but I mean, it's really, we're not gonna do that, you're right, I mean,
Yeah.
politically difficult here, so many
Impossible.
things are
In the United
impossible,
States- in the
thank
United-
you.
not just Hawaii, but the United States in
Yeah.
particular.
Okay,
you
but
know.
including Hawaii.
Including
What you
Hawaii,
said.
yeah.
So, here we are, in the state of energy. This is a place where we've had dreams and
clean energy.
Clean energy, sorry. Well, energy, in my view, I want to tell you this up front. Energy, in my view, is clean. Sorry I said that. It's always clean. That's what it's like implied.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, so, here we are, and, the battle lines are being drawn around PV and legislature, and, the oil is way down cheap and it's gonna stay there at least for a little while. And people are getting shaken out of the market, and we're not gonna increase the gas tax on a gallon of gas at the pump. This is gonna have a bad effect on us, because we're supposed to be developing, am I right? Did I lose something here? We're supposed to be developing clean energy like gangbusters in this state. This stands in the way.
I mean,
Do something.
the urgency is not, I mean, for the sponsors and the stakeholders, certain individuals, the urgency is still there, but for Joe Public and the voter, the urgency might not be as there as much, because they're basically not seeing the prices that they saw 6
It's
months
not there
ago.
for my wife, I'll tell you that.
So she knew something was coming down.
Well, she must have, I don't know why she didn't talk to me. I would have made some stock picks, If you want to give stock picks, it's okay.
No.
No, but I mean, this is actually a very bad business for us in a state where we have spent so much time and focus, so many people are involved in trying to move to clean energy. And I think this is going to stand in the way. It's going to undermine our resolve and the speed at which we move. Am I wrong?
But,
No,
but
I
Sasha
think you're
started
right.
the conversation saying that with oil, it's cyclical. So, how big is that cycle? And, so that you can't just say, okay, we're going to leave it now. We're not going to do renewables because that price is down. It's going to go up. And it's just when.
Well, we know that, but I
So
can
how do
tell
you-
you that
how do you
it's,
deal with
it's,
it?
A regular person.
it's
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah.
the momentum is going to slow down, and we really worry about that for efficiency.
Sure.
Because,
Same problem.
Everything-
so why
everything's-
should I turn the lights off? It's not that
Doesn't matter.
expensive
It's cheap.
anymore.
It's like the good old days,
Yeah.
Remember that black and white photo of this gas pump in the South, and it had the price on it? Ever seen this thing? You can get it on the internet. And this is like 4 cents or something. We're going back there
I
now.
don't remember back then.
I remember 99 cents. 4 cents.
When I was a kid,
That was for-
when I was a kid, a gallon of gas and a pack of cigarettes for the same price. And it was like 25 cents. I don't want to date
I know what
myself,
you're
but how about that? Okay, well, I think this is pretty serious. And while everybody is, mapping up their strategies and trying to get the legislature involved in every single element of our service, that's a Yiddish word meaning trouble, around clean energy, this is a factor that is going to erode our resolve. What do we do? Or we just stand by and take it?
Well, I'd like to hear from Sasha.
Yeah,
What
okay.
LNG, the impact on LNG, and then what do we do as a state? I mean, we're just small and vulnerable. in the middle
I
of
don't
nowhere.
think you can let short-term price movements change your long-term fundamental plan, because we know things are going to change. So because oil is at $40 right now does not mean it's not going to be at 90 or 100 in 5 years or 10 years. So I think you have to continue to plow along, even in these a low-price world. So
But you know what happens? I mean, I always say that the clean energy initiative morphed into the cheap energy initiative. It's like people didn't really know the difference. They started out thinking that, oh yeah, let's go for clean. Next time you look, let's go for cheap, forget clean. And now with cheap gas and with LNG on the same argument there, we have those people. They're surfacing again.
Yeah.
And they're saying, oh, good, this is what we really want.
Well, I've always wondered, I mean, what is that threshold for people? What are they willing to pay for clean energy? Is it 10% more? Is it 20% more? Is it 100% more?
I don't think they know. I think, honestly.
I think it obviously-
It's like the legislature itself. It's got to be re-educated every cycle. And I think the people who, honestly, this is thought for you guys. I'm interested in your reaction. I think the people who are so excited in 2008 when Linda Lingle rolled out the Clean Energy Initiative. They're not around. It's another generation.
So 2008 oil was $147 a barrel as well.
So thank you for mentioning that. That sort of undoes my theory.
But, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
would you revisit the idea of a tax, though, for
I
Hawaii?
I would.
Because that would,
This is the
help
time to do it.
Yeah.
As we were saying, I mean, this is the time to do it. So, but again, is there the political will to push something like that through?
Everybody's arguing about other things, not that. That's the thing, But let's go to one more point, and that's where's this going? I mean, you must have a handle on the future. Make believe we're one of your 270 clients, big clients, in Wall Street. Okay?
Yeah.
And you come in, your appointment. We have a nice cup of coffee and everything. We say, well, Sasha, what's going on? What can we have
What can Hawaii
billions
do?
invested in this deal? What should we do?
Well, as we talked about a little last Friday, as far as the outlook for our oil prices in the power sector, last year, Hawaii paid about $21 per million BTU, so that's roughly about $120 a barrel oil equivalent. Our forecast for this year is that it'll be almost half of that, about $12 a million BTU, and for the next 15 years, it'll be about $14 a million BTU. So my point here is that the prices we've seen over the last few years are going to be significantly lower for the foreseeable future. And I just don't know how HECO and others easily shift away from oil at those levels, those price levels, without incurring some kind of essentially a tax on the consumer.
Well, all things being equal, and then we'll take a break on it, all things being equal, if they shift away, let's say that oil gets cheap, LNG is cheap, and HECO decides to let's shift away because it's the ideal right thing to do. All of a sudden, your electric bill goes way up, okay? And everybody gets mad at you because they really care about cheap. And I don't think HECO's going to do that too quickly, right? I mean, they don't want to be any more unpopular. Thoughts?
Well, there's another issue. HECO may not be HECO next year this time, and who knows what the new company will want to do if that merger goes through. So it's a wide open field, and we're having to navigate carefully and re-educate people, as you said.
Yeah, go back to square one. Well, when things get really complex, you guys, when there's so many issues on the plate, there's so many variables that you can't even count them, you know what you do? You take a break. So that was
Okay.
Nicely played.
We'll take a short break. I swear we'll be right back.
Aloha, Yappers. This is your host, Kingsley, for the Yap Show. Every Friday, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch us here live, ThinkTech Hawaii, and then later on, we upload to our YouTube channel. We talk about youth issues, policies, youth programs, and how to transition yourself into adulthood.
But this was like a sign, I guess. Hey, Mike's like, hey, now's your chance to go back to school, which I'm doing.
Catch us here again live, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. Aloha.
Okay, we're back, we're live, we're here, we're figuring it out, okay? Sasha Fesharaki of FGE Energy, that's Facts Global Energy, Ray Starling and Sharon Moriwaki here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, talking about the, oil and gas outlook for Hawaii. That's not exciting, but we can't, we can't think of another name. Okay, but as Sharon mentioned during the break, it's very important to have breaks because then we can mention this kind of thing to the other one and remind people what we need to talk about. Okay, LNG. I've been kind of lumping them up, but you would lump them up. It's different. LNG is different.
Yeah.
Why is LNG different?
It is a hydrocarbon, of course. It's natural gas that's essentially liquefied, and the reason it's liquefied is so you can transport it economically, because it shrinks it to 1/600th of the size. But the reason why natural gas is very popular, for example, in the U.S. mainland, it's about a quarter of power generation, is because it's obviously a bit cleaner. There's less methane coming out. And the power plants it's running, they're typically more efficient than these older fired power plants. And it's an abundant resource, domestic abundant resource. So we've seen a surge in gas consumption in the United States. And now, around the world, where there's small kind of island communities like ours that are relying on oil, and they have relied on oil because oil at the time was the cheapest and easiest to transport and to burn, are looking at LNG as an alternative because they can, in many cases, burn it in their existing power plants. And again, because there's environmental constraints coming up within their own states or own countries, as we have here in Hawaii with new MAT standards coming in 2016 and eventually some tighter EPA regulations in the early 2020s. So gas is a nice substitute if you can't go full renewables at the time. And we've often heard this word, the bridge, and some people question, is it, a bridge forever, or is it a temporary bridge? But I'm going to say here it's a temporary bridge, because you could do LNG in Hawaii for 10 to 15 years and still pay off the assets, essentially.
And in that period of time, by your projections, is LNG, all things considered, going to be cheaper than oil?
Depends on how you structure it. So kind of complicated as far as the pricing formulas, but basically you can link it to US domestic gas prices, or you can link it to oil. If we link it to US domestic gas prices, because most of it's coming from the Gulf Coast, it'll end up more expensive than an oil-linked contract.
LNG, in that case, will be more expensive than domestic oil.
No, than an LNG contract linked to oil. So typically, the majority of LNG in the world is traded on a discount to oil, roughly about 15 to 20%. So by the time the gas is here and has been shipped, stored, regasified, you're delivering it to the customer at about 15 to 20% less than your oil alternative.
And so in the next 15 years, you would assume that it would continue at that spread?
Yeah, essentially you're locking in that spread, right? That's just the structure of the
contractually, you could do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, you
Right
could
now,
do that.
right now.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so you would lock in a guaranteed discount, but is 15% enough?
Well, is 15% enough to pay the cost of the infrastructure that you will use for only a useful life of 15 years?
It is. It is.
It is.
It is.
You heard it here on ThinkTech.
It is.
I hope you're making notes on this. We need a short examination.
It is, but you would definitely need at least 10 years. At least 10 years.
To amortize the cost of all this stuff.
Exactly.
Really? Well, that militates in favor of LNG then.
Well, if your alternative is just oil or LNG, yes.
Yeah. But they say, now, this is not really the mainstream for you, but they say that if we get off on these bridges, whatever, and LNG was a bridge, that it's gonna screw up our initiative to clean energy. We're gonna get distracted. We're already distracted in so many things, but we're gonna get distracted. We'll put all that in. We'll have this wonderful infrastructure, which has been fully amortized. It won't cost a penny to go forward. We'll actually have the thing all paid for.
And it can sail away in 10 years if they do a floating ship. So it's not like it's going to be, something stuck on
People
shore
will say,
forever.
why sail it away when it still works?
Well, here is the thing though. If you look around the world, a lot of places that do use LNG, they like it, become addicted to it, so to speak. Kind of like
the operative word here is addicted.
No, but it's true. It's true because it's a cleaner, cheaper fuel than oil. So they will continue, after that 10 years is up, they might decide to, let's do another 10 years.
Unless they've been really smart and gone with energy conservation and efficiency and renewables.
Well, let's turn to you on this. How in the world, politically, legally, can we make sure that the bridge ends at the end of whatever period we say is right? Say 15 years for this discussion. How can we make sure now? For example, you see all the time that a legislature changes a tax. They change an arrangement. They sunset it later. They change everything the previous legislature, and they have no responsibility. They're in charge. They can do anything they want.
You need strong, consistent leadership, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
That's what you need in order to put us on the long-term course. Anybody can lead for a year or two. It's when you've got somebody who's going to lead for 10 years, lead you down a path that's got a 10-year time on it. That's hard to do.
This is why
very
we
hard to
have to return to the monarchy.
I was going to say, this is why we need a king.
Enough of this democracy.
Democracy is messy.
It's tumultuous.
But the infrastructure can sort of, over 10 years or 15 years, it probably could be destroyed over time, right? I mean, you can say this should end in 15 years, and the infrastructure could be old in 15 years.
You remember the
you know?
Deacon's Chariot? It's a poem.
Deconstructs.
The Deacon's Chariot was a chariot that was built to last for 100 years, which is a long time for a chariot. And the ironic thing about it is that on its 100th birthday, everything fell apart. So why can't we build an LNG facility that will last for 15 years and everything falls apart on the 15th anniversary?
So if we do one here, the likely solution is an offshore solution. It's essentially a ship, which is a deployable asset. So after that 15 years is up, it can be like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm going to Jamaica or something,
Right.
wherever, another island nation.
And the cost could increase, right? After that 15 years, then your price has to be renegotiated as well.
'cause
So it could go higher.
Could go
as well.
higher. It really just depends on the market. Could go higher, could go lower. Because you're essentially leasing this vessel for that 10 or 15-year
Enter
period.
into another lease and perpetuate it.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I
could
had
be
a
costly, though.
professor in law school who said that sometimes it's important that when the legislature adopts the statute that looks into the future, that they make it clear they really mean it. So at the bottom of the bill, in the statute, it says, in case you were wondering, we really mean it this time.
It will sunset.
And if you say that 3 times, it has a certain power to it.
Look, I think the bottom line is that if we are still using oil in 15 years and we haven't, for a good portion of our power generation, we haven't switched to LNG, we missed a big opportunity. And that's what I don't want us to be in that situation. If we're fully renewables, great, no worries, no need LNG, no need oil. But if we're still burning oil for over 50% of our power generation in 2030, we screwed up.
Maybe
Okay?
there's
We
a
missed an
s-
opportunity because right now is a good time to be sourcing.
Yes, and maybe there's a solution here. I mean, the bridge thing is of concern to me, and to other people too, but I'm thinking that why can't we have both? Why can't we have LNG on whatever sunset
Temporary,
arrangement people want?
temporary.
Okay, but also require ongoing, efficiency programs, require ongoing clean energy programs.
Have it
Don't
all.
stop on PV, don't stop on wind, don't
Agree,
stop on
agree.
geothermal.
Sure.
Have it all, have it
I
all.
hope that is what happens.
Hopefully.
The trick is not to let people get distracted from the clean energy initiative. That's what I would worry
Agreed.
about.
Agreed.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Well,
Got
that's
to
the
get back to the
policy.
legislature.
Right,
this
the
afternoon
policies,
right
the
now.
policies. Right, you have to keep those policies going and in place.
But one more thing about getting oil out of this system for power generation. We've talked a bit about the economics on why gas could be nice with this 15, 20% locked-in discount. But we also have environmental, issues coming up, rules basically that we can no longer burn the stuff we're burning now. So something has to be done. You either get a different, oil blend that's going to cost even more. You retrofit your burners for, $700 million, $1 billion, which there's no way that's going to happen. Or you go to an alternative as a natural gas or solar or wind or whatever. But if we can't get renewables as 100% load, then we have to look at something, I believe, like natural gas.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, people talk about what happened to climate change. So when I make my joke about clean goes to cheap, it's like we forgot about one of the essential elements in 2008, and that was climate change. Al Gore's movie and all that.
Yeah.
That's the last thing we think about these days. I mean, I think the president has got his head in the right place about that. He wants to return to that. A return because I think we forgot for a while. But how do you reconcile that with the bridge?
It's a good question. But I just go back to the old thing that was better than burning that dirty oil.
That's it. It's the least of the bad things.
Lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
So to speak. So.
So one thing I think, you're still relatively young, Sasha. I mean,
Thank you, Jay.
between Ray and me, anyway, Sharon, we're not gonna. But, don't you think you ought to go into clean energy also? I mean, for example, the Energy Policy Forum created, with Carl Friedman's help, a report card on how well we're doing in clean energy, right? And we have a website and all that stuff, and try to, figure out the metrics, and that's a hard job. But don't you think that FGE should go into that? I mean,
It's too
a natural
competitive
progression.
out here. Man, it's the mafia out here. We can't break into that mafia. Maybe you can help me.
You're gonna retain your purity.
Yeah. I mean, look, we look at all fuel sources because, we do a lot of policy stuff as well. And obviously, it's not just oil and gas in the energy system. And we've looked at some things of this nature, but our niche is oil and natural gas, so that's what we're going to
Okay, and you know we'll be back to ask you over and over again.
Anytime.
I was doing, you're our metric on oil and gas.
If you don't ask me back, then I know we don't need any more oil and gas in Hawaii,
Oh,
so
that
we're
would
good
be
to
a
go. So
good
if
thing,
we don't see
maybe.
each other, that's a good thing then, maybe, huh?
Well, it won't be for a
Five-year
while.
prediction. Is transportation going to change from the mix we have now in the next 5 years?
No.
Thank you.
With a capital
No.
N.
I rest my case.
That is a problem.
Yeah, and my wife's next car will likewise be that. Okay, so now we come to the part of our show where Ray gets to wrap up and summarize for the benefit of the people who were not listening to anything you said.
Well, my summary is it's very, very complex, and it's going to be difficult to get through this. And we didn't really talk that much about the climate change and the effects of continuing to burn fossil fuel. We didn't talk about the earthquakes in Texas now because of the fracking, or allegedly because of the fracking. But there are a lot of things that, there are a lot of moving parts, and we're dealing with a small subset of the big picture right here in Hawaii. And I hope we can garner enough support from all the people who really care about making Hawaii good for the long term, that we can reach these goals and get onto the clean energy sooner rather than later. So more discussion, I think, is in order, and I really appreciate Sasha coming in to be with us today. So,
Thank you.
and we will have you back.
Yeah,
I
we're
know,
sworn to
I
cover it,
understand.
and we're sworn to have you back.
Yeah.
All right, Sharon, say goodnight to the people.
Have a good night, and thank you again, Sasha.
Thank you for
Really
having me.
appreciate
Appreciate
being
it.
part of our group, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Happy New Year.
Shin Yin Kuai Le.